Well, here we go. Have you seen this? Apparently World Rugby have privately acknowledged that Aaron Smith's try, which was disallowed during the World Cup final, should have been allowed. And it was wrong to have been chalked off. I guess the story here is then that New Zealand, you won the World Cup. Well done. Sia Khaleesi here is holding up the cup. He's saying that's a photo of him saying, "Here you go, come and get it then, guys." Come on. This is in danger of just coming off as a little bit salty. And I want to stress when I say that, I'm not accusing New Zealand fans or coaches or players of being salty. In fact, as they always do, they have behaved with class and humility ever since that World Cup final night, which must have been really, really disappointing. So what is going on here? Well, yeah, there's this, I don't know, is it a story? So I've got journalistic integrity. I understand how journalism works, bearing in mind the line of work I'm in. And this is kind of, as I see it, it's a non-story. Because what's actually been reported is that someone unnamed has said something to someone unnamed about something. It doesn't amount to a great deal, but fine, for the sake of it, let's dig into it, because it's become a little bit of a story that people are talking about it, so let's wade in. So yeah, Aaron Smith scored a try which was then disallowed in the World Cup final after a brilliant Richie Mo'unga break. The TMO Tom Foley flagged up a knock-on after the try had been awarded at the line-out, which was where the attacking play started for New Zealand. He brought that to Wayne Barnes' attention. Wayne Barnes had a look at the knock-on, decided, yep, it was a knock-on, try disallowed. So the quote from this faceless, nameless source says, quote, "World Rugby has privately acknowledged that the ruling out of Aaron Smith's try was in fact outside of the rules, but is refusing to publicly acknowledge that." So what they're basically saying is, yes, the knock-on did occur, but it was after 4 phases of play from the knock-on, and the TMO only has licence in the laws to look back 2 phases in the build-up to that try, which is absolutely correct. And many people, myself included, pointed this out at the time. However, what I didn't do is say, and this is my main point, what I didn't do was say the try should have been allowed. My point would be to say this just highlights how absolutely ridiculous and unnecessarily complicated the laws in rugby can be, and how stupid they can make the sport look. They didn't need to privately acknowledge that the try was disallowed against the laws of the game. Anyone that knew the laws of the game knew that on the night. But the laws are absolutely stupid. And I would look at this situation in different ways. Okay, let's come at this from different angles. Imagine you were a casual rugby fan watching the World Cup final, and you see that try for Aaron Smith, and then you follow the TMO and Wayne Barnes go through the process of disallowing the try. If you were a casual rugby fan and you didn't know all of the nuances of all of the laws, you would have watched that and gone, that makes perfect sense. You wouldn't be sat there going, but it was more than 2 phases. So I don't know what people were expecting Wayne Barnes to do once the issue had been raised by the TMO. Imagine Tom Foley raised the issue and Wayne Barnes looked at it on the big screen and then said, Tom, I just need to check the number of phases. Yeah, okay, it was definitely a knock-on, but I'm going to award the try anyway. That would have made rugby look ridiculous and highlights how crazy the rules are. And this is the inevitable consequence of abdicating the responsibility for running the game of rugby from the referee, which is something that many people have been calling for and asking for, and in some respects it kind of works, in some respects it doesn't. I think this whole 2 phase or fewer is a crazy thing, because in the heat of battle, like Tom Foley, the TMO's seen a knock-on. It's a World Cup final. If he sees it and doesn't mention it, he'll get lambasted. And if he does mention it, then you can't really win in this situation. And rugby doesn't help itself. These laws are unnecessarily complicated, and I would strip so much of it away and simplify things. I mean, a lot of non and casual rugby fans watched that World Cup final and they couldn't get their head around the fact that Sam Cane got a red or that Sia Khaleesi got a yellow card. So they're sort of going, huh? What? Red card for an accident? Now, I'm not making a judgment on that because I have seen the way rugby's gone the last couple of years. It didn't seem as strange to me, but I understand why the perception of rugby is that a lot of people were watching the World Cup and going, what? What's happened to rugby? And when we resurrect arguments like this 2 weeks or more after a World Cup final, it's doing nobody any good. So I think, for the record, Wayne Barnes did an absolutely spot-on job on the night, because I think my reading of what happened was, because if you remember, after this decision to disallow the Aaron Smith try, which once it got raised to Wayne Barnes that there was a knock-on at the line-out, Wayne Barnes had to disallow the try, no question, and so he made the right call. But I think Wayne Barnes also probably knew in his mind, hold on a minute, and this might be why he's the best referee in the world. He's also a barrister, for what it's worth, and some of those skills came to the fore. I think he processed in his mind, definite knock-on, so I can't award the try. However, probably more than 2 phases. Because do you remember, he came up with that really kind of cheap excuse to give New Zealand a penalty, like on the knock-on was caused because of contact in the air in the line-out, and he gave the penalty to New Zealand. I think that was Wayne Barnes' way of kind of exiting the situation in the fairest way possible. But they were only put in that situation because the laws are ridiculous. And I think the issue I have is Wayne Barnes is the best referee on earth. Well, he was, because he's retired now. He was the best referee in the world, has been for a long time. But the reason Tom Foley is sat in the TMO seat is because he's not as good a referee as Wayne Barnes. Okay? And then the person in the bunker, we don't even know who they are. So when it comes to those bunker decisions, as with Sam Cane's red card, for example, we don't even know who that person was. And they're definitely not as good as Wayne Barnes. So as you go down the food chain, you've got people that are less qualified and less able making decisions. Now, I'm not saying right or wrong the Sam Cane red card, for example. I'm actually going, okay, well, let's go with that. I would rather have Wayne Barnes make that decision because he's the best referee in the world. Equally, I'd rather that hand Wayne Barnes more, or the referee on the field, more responsibility and accept the universal truth that there will always be human error, there will always be times when there's interpretation, and there will always be decisions that are marginal and you think should have gone one way and actually go the other way, and those things even out over time. A great example is the Bowden Barrett try, which many people would say was a forward pass. I actually think the decision on the field was the correct one. I thought the pass was flat and then it bounced and went forward. But I can understand why people look at that and go, that was a forward pass. And here's the biggest point of all when it comes to a sport like rugby union. And I lived by this opinion after the semi-final for England, because I looked at that and you know, you can say there were decisions that made a game go one way or the other. No. You've got 80 minutes to win a rugby game. There is never, ever a single point of failure. There is always lots and lots of things within your control as a rugby team, and whatever level you may have played rugby at. I know this, I coach 2 teams, and this is what I tell my teams all the time when they come off moaning about a referee. It's like, yeah, but we didn't do this, and we didn't do that, and we missed that kick, and we didn't execute that line out. There's never a single point of failure, and it's a weak-minded person that comes off of a field and blames a defeat on a single refereeing decision. Because the other thing about that is, let's say the Aaron Smith try had been awarded. You can't just say, oh, New Zealand lost by 1 point, therefore if Aaron Smith's try had been given, New Zealand would have won the World Cup. Because no, it changes the dynamic of the game completely. There's a butterfly effect and you just don't know the way that game will have gone. So I prefer to enjoy the sport and accept some decisions go your way, some don't. You may agree, you may disagree. It's not corruption, it's not anything deliberate, and that is part of the beauty, the heartbreak and the elation of sport. And for that reason, this story, that man, I don't like the fact that so much of Wayne Barnes' incredible career since he's retired, all the interviews you've seen have been talking about online threats and big decisions. We should just celebrate the sport. And this story, as a result, I'm just going to call it, it's BS. And I wish they hadn't bothered writing it. It's not worth the ink on the page, because World Rugby aren't going to say anything official, and they shouldn't either. Anyway, sorry, I've got a bit wound up about that. I'm Tim, by the way. This is Egg Chasers. And if you've got to this point in the video, I'd love it if you would subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and tell me what you think down below.